Lucas, can you confirm whether you hear us? Peter confirms that he can hear us. So, Koen, we got a question relating to the goals for 2020 and whether we will continue to be a Dutch platform. Can you take that question?
Sure. So before I take that question, I want to thank you all who are still on the line for being patient with us. So we are indeed raising funds on Seedrs, and I guess one of the things we're going to do first is to invest in a new webinar technology, as to make sure that this won't happen again. And before I start answering that question, I would also like to start explaining why we are raising funds on Seedrs. So my name is Koen. I'm the CEO at Lendahand, and next to me is Daniel van Maanen. And Daniel is our CFO to be. We are a regulated investment firm, so we still need to get approval from the regulator, which is, I hope, a formality, but in a few weeks' time, hopefully, Daniel will be announced officially as CFO. And I'm also one of the co-founders. And when we started setting up Lendahand a few years ago, in 2013, we had as dream that one day, hopefully, we will be able to do 100 million on our platform. And we are now actually at close to 80 million. So you can say that we are on our way to achieving, well, that dream. And now that we are here, we want to do much more. So Lendahand has been set up to fight poverty in emerging markets by investing in people and businesses. So obviously we don't have that kind of money ourselves, but we do feel that it's a different time now. We are looking for a different system. People that have money available want to see that their money is used for something good, not only to yield financial returns, but also to yield social returns. And that's a commitment that citizens are willing to make, and also by investing in small and medium enterprises in emerging markets. So now that we're here, close to 80 million, we really want to continue our path and do much more. So we've decided to raise additional funds, and our minimum goal is 1 million, but we hope to get as much as 2 million euros in on the Seedrs platform, so that we can grow our team, invest in technology, and scale up, and also see where in other markets we can become active in. Right now we're active in the Netherlands, in the UK, in Belgium, and a little bit in the Nordics. So we want to expand that, so that now our dream is actually to do 1 billion. And hopefully in a few years' time, we can say, well, that's not a dream anymore. So where do we go next? So if you look at our plans for 2020, well, reality caught on with us, and we had as an ambition to do 45 million in funding through our platform. Last year we did 27.5, so that's a good growth. But because of the whole COVID situation, we had to adjust downwards our aspirations, if you will. So now we are aiming on doing between 30 and 35 million on our platform, and we think that's still achievable if we still keep doing the right things. So the question whether we will become more than a Dutch platform, that was always the intention, and that was already the path that we were on. As I said before, we are also active in the UK, so about 25% of the volumes that we see is actually coming from our UK platform called Energize Africa, which has a specific focus on energy access in sub-Saharan Africa. And we have also become more active in Belgium, where right now 10% of our new investors each month come from Belgium, and we are increasing our efforts in the Nordics. And so that hasn't changed, but what has changed because of COVID is that we had to do a downward revision of our budgets and of our projections. But by doing so, it makes that we are better positioned once the whole situation, well, I wouldn't say it's over because it will take a while, but if there's more visibility on how the situation is going to look like, that we are able to start our growth again.
And Koen, can you maybe explain what we mean when we say we want to expand to the Nordics, when we want to expand to Germany? What does that mean for the platform itself? Are we also going to open platforms there?
Yes, so we are an online platform. So as an online platform, it's in theory it's easy to just open it up for other countries as well. Again, we are a regulated platform, so we have a MiFID license, which is a European license. And with this license, you can carry out the activities as we do. However, each country can have its own additional regulations. So we have to make sure that if we do any financial promotions in those countries, that we adhere to those additional restrictions and regulations. So what we always have to do is a legal check on what is possible. Do we have to adjust anything on our platform? Do we have to show any kind of banner or additional information that comes with the projects? So once we have the legal green lighting, then what we do is, okay, so how can we attract new investors in this country to our platform? And obviously for each country, that's a different approach. So then we look for partnerships there, we talk to PR agencies, and then we see how we can best position ourselves. So by opening up for other countries, that's exactly what we then try to do, is one, to be sure that we are allowed to do financial promotions, and then second, how do we do that best given the specifics of this country.
So, and it does not necessarily require building a new website or a new IT infrastructure.
No, that's exactly the power of being an online platform, is that we don't have to do that, except for maybe allowing for more payment methods which are specific to a certain country.
Okay. So assuming we have answered that question, we can move to the next question, and that is, what are the risks involved in keeping Lendahand shares? Is that a question you want to answer?
I can give it a shot, and please, Daniel,
sure.
Add to it if you like. So, as with any other scale-up, there's significant risks involved in investing in a company that's in a growth stage. So we need to keep on growing in order to become profitable. We need to scale up. So there are certain conditions that you have to fulfill in order to be able to scale up. And one important one is that you have what they call, and it's kind of I guess business lingo, is positive unit economics, meaning that for each investor that we're able to onboard, which costs us money because we have to spend marketing budgets in order to get people to our platform, that each investor actually brings sufficient revenues to the platform so that we can cover those marketing costs, and also in the end also our fixed costs. And we do have positive economics. We are able to engage with the investors and answer the questions and make them feel comfortable so that they can make good investment decisions on our website and then start investing. So that's one important factor that you need in order to scale up. However, the risk obviously is on both sides. So one is that we are not able to attract sufficient investors. On the other hand, it can also be that we are not able to find sufficient pipeline, and that we don't have that we're not able to find the right projects that we can put on our website, or that quite a few of those projects and investees go into default, so that the whole trust that we have built on our platform falls away, so that new investors will be hard to come by, but also that existing investors will not actively invest on our platform. There are also other risks involved, such as us losing our license, but I guess we have that covered very well. We have people here in our management team that are quite experienced, people with 20 years of experience. So in terms of compliance and governance, we have a good idea of what we need to do in order to maintain our license. And of course, you can also, as a scale-up, you can actually fail because of your own success. If you grow too fast, too soon, you may invest do quickly and add to your fixed cost, so that if there's something like COVID comes along, that you don't have sufficient runway and you're out. But yeah, so with the hiring also of Daniel, with ample CFO experience, and we have a few ex-bankers here in the team, I think we understand this very well, that liquidity is important and that we have the right projections and make sure that our liquidity is always in order. But yeah, having said that, that's also definitely a risk in buying the shares of Lendahand.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, I think it's fair to say that we have left, let's say, the pure startup phase. This company has now been around for 7 years. We've shown solid growth. So over the past 3 years, we've grown our volumes by on average 50%. This year, due to COVID, we will have a lower growth, but we still expect to grow our volumes by about 30%. We have a proven concept. We have a very loyal investor base that is now over 7,000 people across our Lendahand and Energize Africa platforms. So in that sense, we are beyond the first and very risky phase. But as Koen mentioned, obviously, we do need to attract further investors on the platform, as well as companies in emerging markets that want to borrow by making use of the Lendahand platform. And I think that ties in with the next question. What is the expected development of the share value of Lendahand? You wanna?
So unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, but what we do expect is that once we have this new funding in coming from the Seedrs project, that we're able to expand the team, and then obviously we've thought a lot about what can we then do, where can we expand, which processes can we improve, so that we're able to scale up this platform. We do foresee that we can actually at least maintain the growth that we've shown so far, but maybe also even accelerate on that, so that we will be able to do in a few years' time to do a few $100 million per year on our platform. Now then comes the question too. So that's the volume. And then the question is, what happens to the margins as we are scaling up? And there we see a few different forces. So one is that as you scale up, actually, you should be able to become more efficient. So your margins could actually widen. But at the same time, we also see that in order to scale up, we need to work together with more parties. So we can think of co-financing parties, so parties that will actually say, you know what, we have a certain pipeline that we can also bring to the Lendahand platform, but obviously that would lower our margins. And also what we think as a social enterprise is that if we are able to get economies of scale, that we should also say, okay, we can have this reflected in an increasing share price, or maybe once we are profitable in the form of dividends. But we should also look at, are we able to lower the interest rates to our investees, who then can lower the pricing to their clients? Because if we're able to do that, we're actually providing downward pressure on interest rates in emerging markets, so that we can actually get more investors accepting lower interest rates. So this balance of protecting the interest of the different stakeholders is an important one to us. So we see our shareholders as an important stakeholder, but we also see our investees and the people in the emerging markets also as our stakeholders. And each time we have to see where we can provide the best value by maybe lowering interest rates or increasing dividends. So that's on the margin side. So volumes, definitely we see a lot of growth potential. Margins, they will remain the same or maybe even go a bit lower. But ultimately that should reflect in an increasing share price. Where the share price is going to be, I think that's not for us to say, but we think that there's a lot of upside potential.
Okay. Also related to the previous point on the projections and the impact of COVID-19. So a question is, what is the impact on the projects and our local partners, and what are the chances that some of the outstanding loans will not be fully paid back? And maybe I can start answering there, and fill me in where needed. So obviously, it's this is a question that is on top of everybody's mind, and it's something that our investments team is spending a lot of time and resources on to be in touch with our local partners, understand the situation on the ground. It's difficult to answer because we currently have approximately 30 active partners in about 15 different countries and also across different sectors. And as you will understand, the impact on each of these businesses is different. What we do see is that in general, sales are going down, and collection rates are slowing, and that means that some of our investees will have less cash flows coming in, and that is why they turn towards lenders such as Lendahand, but also other impact investors that may be active lenders to these companies, and ask them to think along. And as you will have seen, well, Lendahand has responded by allowing those companies under certain conditions to upload new projects to be able to refinance scheduled repayments. And in this way, we alleviate the immediate cash pressure that they may feel. So far, this has been very successful. It seems that our crowd is still very keen to support those businesses, and we do not have indications from those specific companies that they will not be able to fulfill their obligations. And it's fair to say that in most countries, the immediate impact of COVID-19 is felt, but is not yet dramatic. So far, we are relatively happy with, let's say, the resilience of our investee companies. It is fair to say that some companies, as you also know, have experienced payment arrears, and it might well be that Corona and COVID will have a further negative impact on those businesses. So we cannot say for sure that all of our portfolio companies will be able to survive these challenging times, but given the enormous scale of this global crisis, we are actually relatively positively surprised by how our companies are keeping up so far. Unless you have anything to add, then we'll continue with the next questions. So a next question is, what is the personal investment of the Lendahand management teams, or are they getting any shares in the company?
Yeah, so we actually each member of the team, not only the management team, is in some form a shareholder in Lendahand. We truly believe in that concept, that we should all feel owner of this company here at Lendahand. But yeah, the management team obviously has the largest share in that. So for the most part, this is what they say is sweat equity. So we have started working at Lendahand and building Lendahand 7 years ago. And we gave up well-paying jobs for that. And we started with a certain equity package. And once in a while, we have to do a certain update on that in order to maintain a certain percentage because of dilution as we are raising funds. But yeah, I can say that there's full commitment from the management team and from the team in general. We have invested. So to give an example, when we started, we paid ourselves out. I think from top of mind, it was 25,000 euros per year gross salary that we were paying ourselves, because we were very cautious about spending our investors' money on ourselves rather than on marketing budgets, etc. And our salaries are still quite low. To be honest, maybe even too low is sometimes what I think. But that's fine. We are in here with a certain commitment, and we want to make this a success. And if the company does well, it means that our investors are doing well, our investees are doing well, our shareholders are doing well. And that basically then also means that as a management team, we will also do well. And so that's fully aligned. So yeah, we don't own the majority of the company anymore as a management team. It used to be like that until a few years ago, but we still have significant stakes in the company.
Okay, thank you. So related to a question, so we're now trying to raise 1 million euros in exchange for a 5.4% share in the company. So the question is, where is the other 95% coming from?
Yeah, so if you look at the broader team, so not only management team, but also the team itself, that accounts for perhaps 50% more or less of the shares. Then we have in our seed rounds, in our last seed round, there's a fund called FinTech Velocity Ventures who invested in us. And before that, ICO, which is a Dutch NGO, Christian NGO, they also invested some money. And then we have, I would say, 7 or 8 angel investors who also invested maybe for a total of, I would say, 20% or so. And then the remaining is coming from earlier crowdfunding campaigns that we raised. So in 2014, 15, and 16. We raised on the Dutch crowdfunding platforms, and that's probably around between 15 and 20% as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And with that, I think we have covered the questions that have been raised so far. Does anyone have another question? And I think you can raise your questions on the chat, and I would expect also live in the webinar.
No more questions? So if there are no more questions, then I would like to thank you for your time. Again, apologies for the chaotic start of this webinar.
We do have a new question, so not too quick. So there's a question on the valuation of the share price now, and you estimate the value of the company in 2025. Is that the correct way to calculate? So yeah, I guess there's various ways to do company valuation, and the challenge is for a relatively young company and a fast-growing company, which year, which moment to pinpoint. So, for example, if you would now take our revenues or our net result, that is not really reflective of where we expect to be in the next few years. Certainly now that we are raising funds and we expect to deploy that capital in a manner that will accelerate our growth over the next few years. We felt that the right way to value our company is to project where we expect to be in a couple of years' time, when we have truly grown to be a pan-European impact investment platform and a leading player in the field. To determine, using industry metrics, what our exit value in 2025 could be. But then obviously we have to calculate that back to today's value, and we've used a attractive and high equity return for that. So we've used 50% to calculate that value back, and that's the approach that we have taken.
So we got reminded that there were actually already a few questions asked before this webinar by a few people. So we can also go through those and answer those. So the first is, what is our equity policy and how does raising on Seedrs work? So as a scale-up company, we are still dependent on additional equity raises. However, we do foresee that if we are able to attract between 1 and 2 million on this Seedrs round, we would be able to become profitable in 2022. And at that point, we can finance our own growth. The question always is then, do you want to do that at that point, or do you decide to invest more and accelerate growth, as we are doing right now? So that remains to be seen. So we are not making the decision today, but it could be that as we are nearing our profitability point, that we decide that we can actually, if we attract more funds, we know what to do with those funds and we know how to grow even faster, and so create more impact. And it's a decision that we can make at that point. If that's indeed the case, then we would need additional funding. We are not sure whether we would do that again on the Seedrs platform. We can also do that with institutional investors, but we always want to make sure that existing investors can invest in the next round as well, so that they can protect their allocation. So how does raising on Seedrs work? So one of the reasons we chose for Seedrs is because it's an easy process. So you create an account on the Seedrs platform. You have to go through KYC, know your customer. Nowadays it's very important that the platform knows who you are. So you have to validate that by means of uploading your driver's license or your passport. In most cases, that only takes a few minutes. In some cases, if you're unlucky, they do additional testing, and then it might take a few business days. But once you're KYC'd, then you can start investing in the project by just going to seedrs.com/Lendahand, and then choose the amount that you want to invest, and you can start as small as 10 euros, and that's it. So you will basically not be investing directly into Lendahand. What happens is that Seedrs nominee will become the legal shareholder in Lendahand and will represent your shares in the company, and that has a few benefits. So one is that they are professional investors, so they know what they want to have in the shareholder agreement, so that they can protect your rights as a shareholder. And the second one is that Seedrs also provides a secondary market where if you would like to sell your stake, your shares, you could go to the Seedrs platform and put them for sale. There are a few limitations to this. Obviously, there needs to be demand for the shares, which we don't know if they will be there. So that's unclear, but hopefully it will be. But also the pricing is set to the same price as we are raising it today. And that will be until we do another additional round, but we don't expect that to do in the next 2 years. So basically it means that in the next 2 years, you're not able to sell your shares at a price higher than it is today. And obviously you're not stepping in Lendahand today to sell it against the same price 1 or 2 years from now. But yeah, but the Seedrs nominee structure is protecting your rights as a shareholder, so that's a good thing. And I think I also then answered another question, which is indeed how can I sell my shares? So that's indeed going to the Seedrs secondary market platform. But it could also, of course, be that at one point there might be a company out there. It could be a sustainable bank, it could be an asset manager, or maybe even a tech player that wants to start off-balance sheet lending on a global scale. That sees the value of actually integrating a company like Lendahand in its own company. We would be very cautious, of course, doing this. But we also see that as we are scaling up and being able to provide more impact, that if we can bring it to a company that has a larger infrastructure and a larger network, that we should definitely consider doing that. If that happens, it basically means that we're selling the company to another company. That's also the moment then where all shareholders get the opportunity to, what they call do an exit and sell the shares to this new company. And that's also a way of selling your shares.
And if you would have to mention one thing that you think a potential future interested party to purchase Lendahand would value in our company, what do you think is the most valuable thing that we've built so far?
So what I think is that it is our base of engaged investors. So we have we have more than 7,000 investors on our platform. Not all of them are active, but most are. And what we see is that they're very engaged. They keep looking for new projects on our platform. They are willing to invest in projects in emerging markets, small and medium enterprises that need funding to stimulate the local economy, to create jobs, to provide access to clean energy. And what we see is that we are actually very good at this. We are very good at attracting investors, and those are not only millennials. Actually, a lot of them are people who are older than 40 or 50 years old, who say, I have some money, and part of it I really want to invest and create impact with. And we're able to attract those kind of investors to our platform. And we have already more than 7,000 of them. And we are growing that base. And that's definitely something for sustainable banks or for asset managers and for a lot of other parties out there. An interesting asset, let's call it as such, for them to acquire. So that's definitely something that can have value.
Okay, thank you. And then the question is, if we will also lose some rights now that we sell part of the equity, or now that we issue actually additional shares, will the management now lose certain rights to its shareholders? If I read the question correctly, the answer would be no. Right now, we already have external shareholders. There's the articles of association. There are shareholders agreements that stipulate what decisions the management team and the board of the company can take, and what decisions the shareholders Lendahand can take, and none of those decisions are changing as a result of this equity issuance through the Seedrs platform. So now the answer is we can continue to operate the way we've done.
And also we are, as a management team, we are governed by a supervisory board, which are experienced people that also have certain rights. So each one of us can be fired, for instance. We think that's important because that gives accountability, and also, in terms of governance, that just makes sense. So it's definitely not the case that we are an owner-led company where the owners make all the decisions and have all the voting rights. Definitely not the case. We definitely want to have that kind of accountability and conversations with our stakeholders, and our shareholders are represented by the supervisory board.
Another question is, what is the price of a single share? So one share in Lendahand is currently valued at 181 euros. However, on the Seedrs platform, we're able to offer fractional shares. We've decided to split each share into 14 fractional shares, which means that on the Seedrs platform, you can start buying one share for 12.99 euros, and that represents then 1/14 of a share in Lendahand. So hopefully that answers that question. Another question is, why are you not publishing a balance sheet so we can see where the money is coming from and what the liabilities are? Yeah, so the reason is that we currently do not have 2019 accounts yet finished by the auditor, and since, as you may have seen from the structure, we have a number of subsidiaries, including our UK subsidiary. Let's say the consolidated accounts is a process that unfortunately takes a few months. So we currently do not have an up-to-date and fully audited balance sheet to share. It's good to mention that we have a relatively simple balance sheet, because as you know, we are a broker. It is not so the money that we facilitate to be invested in the emerging market companies does not sit on our balance sheet. It's really the investors on the Lendahand and Energize Africa's platforms funds. Those are not reflected on our balance sheet. We also do not have many different loans. So we have two long-term loans which mature in 2021. The total sum outstanding is 100,000 euros, so they will be fully repaid next year. Given the question, I think we will give it some thought, and perhaps if that provides further clarity, we might consider uploading a pro forma and simplified balance sheet after this webinar. So we will get back to that question later on.
And maybe to add to that is that each quarter we also have to report to the Dutch Central Bank on our capitalization, meaning that we should have sufficient equity, and that needs to be above a certain threshold given our cost base. And this is important for the Dutch Central Bank in terms of continuity to make sure that we can continue as a company. So you can also be rest assured that we have to fulfill those kind of constraints and restrictions from the Dutch Central Bank to make sure that we have sufficient equity at all times on our balance sheet.
Okay, assuming that answers the question regarding a balance sheet, we can move on. And then another question is from Wim. Why is it attractive buying Lendahand shares besides the charity aspect? maybe I'll give it a go, and please.
Please do that, because if I start answering this question and it takes an hour. So go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe it's good also to add some personal perspective. So I only joined Lendahand in about 5 months ago. So in January I joined, and that is after I followed the company for a couple of years. So let's say I'm a relatively still an outsider, if you like, and from my perspective, I thought what Lendahand had done so far was very impressive. Just being able to, when you get an email notification that there's a certain entrepreneur in, let's say, Kenya, who's looking to raise funds to grow their business and to create impact in their community. So when you get that email in your mailbox, and you click a button, and then your banking app opens, and you can select an amount and then invest, and then a few minutes later you get a confirmation that you successfully invested in that business. I thought that was a incredibly smooth process, and a very nice and direct way to support businesses, but to support those businesses in a sustainable way, i.e., in a financially and commercially viable way. So people on our platform lend the money and expect to be repaid and to get an interest. With that interest and with the fee that Lendahand generates by providing those projects on the website, and by successfully funding those projects, Lendahand can earn an income and continue to offer new loans on that website. And I think we found a way that many people like myself before joining Lendahand and still appreciate. So we have a lot of a big crowd of loyal investors, and we are quite confident that certainly with the funds that we are raising now, we can attract many more impact-minded people in Europe that are willing to support those businesses in emerging markets. We also believe that we have an interesting proposition to those companies in emerging markets. We're trying to be fast. We're trying to be dynamic in our offering. We try to offer them very fair pricing. Obviously, they have to understand that we need to make a living, so we need to charge a fee. We also need to offer interest to our crowd, but I think we're very fair in our pricing. So we really try to create a win-win situation. And if indeed we are able to do so, then we can become the largest crowdfunding impact investor in Europe, and we can really achieve the volumes that we are saying to achieve in our presentation. And if we do that, then actually from a financial point of view, this also will become a very successful investment. We're not saying we're going to be the next Uber or the next Airbnb, but we do say that we know how we can make money by creating and making impact. So we are, I think, very confident that we can have that double bottom line.
Exactly, and I will try to keep it short, but what I think is happening right now is that the whole landscape is going to change, right? The whole financial services landscape, the whole banking landscape. Banks are becoming too expensive, too much of like a big tanker that can hardly move in its directions. And here we are, we can start from scratch. We don't have any legacy systems. We can be very agile. We can see how can we cater best to people who really want to measure success, not only by financial returns, but also by social returns. And that's only getting bigger and bigger. And we are going to be part of it. And not only are we going to be part of it, we are going to be a big player, hopefully, in that space. And actually, So for you, you are considering maybe investing a certain part of your available funds. What I think is an even better measurement is for people who are willing to join Lendahand. So far we have been attracting very good talent. And actually, we just spoke to two candidates this morning because we're looking for a new investment analyst. And those are two guys who can start work anywhere that they want, basically. But they have decided that they want to start and work with Lendahand. And that's really an investment, right? Because they tie their career perspectives, they tie their income, they tie everything to Lendahand. For them, it's all in. So that's actually a good framework of measurement of why will Lendahand become a success. And what we see is that talent attracts talent. So we have a very good team here, very committed to the mission that we have to fight poverty in emerging markets. So we are very committed. We really are passionate about it. We want to make this a success. And as a company, we're growing in a growing space of impact investing. So we're at the right moment at the right place. So yeah, it's going to be up to us to make it a success, but all the factors are there.
Okay, and then maybe somewhat related. So we, in our presentation, and this is a question from Judith. In our presentation, we position ourselves somewhere between a typical fintech fund and a retail impact fund. And the question is, how does Lendahand fit in exactly, and what makes that so special?
Yeah, so we are. So we truly believe that if you really want to start an initiative, you have to engage with citizens. So we are definitely here for the retail investors. And what makes us different than other impact funds for those retail investors is that at Lendahand, you can actually pick and choose your projects. So some people have an affiliation with Africa, but some don't. But they do have it with Asia, for instance. So we do offer quite a few investment opportunities in renewable energy. So that's so what we see, for instance, is that millennials think that's a very important topic. But maybe the boomers think that, for instance, financial inclusion is much more of a topic, or creation of jobs. So they would invest in a different kind of impact. So you can go to the Lendahand platform and you can pick and choose your impacts, but also the terms of the loans. So some people only do longer term loans, some do only shorter terms. So it's really so you have also country selection. So you can actually see what kind of impact and investment you want to make versus a fund where you buy participation in the fund, and then it depends on the fund managers and the investment criteria where they invest. So we bring it a bit closer to the investors and more. So the relationship is a little bit closer between the people that receive the money and people that invest the money.
Yeah, and I think on that topic of different sectors, there's also a question from Win who asks, it seems that you also provide loans, or you still give loans to, let's say, old-fashioned type of industries or companies, and should it not be an idea to concentrate more on future-oriented activities like solar energy or new farmer approaches? How do you view that?
So I guess right now, at the moment, 50% of our volumes is indeed coming from renewable energy. So not only solar, but also biogas, etc. And what we also see is that there's a lot of indeed of innovation emerging in the agri space. Anywhere from satellites and but also crop insurance, etc. So there's a lot of innovation going on in the agri space, and we also want to be there because we see that food certainty is also a very important topic and one of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, that we want to contribute to. So what we are doing right now is set up a new platform together with two NGOs that will be focused on the agri space and with also a good focus then within the agri space on innovation, so that we can provide financing to small companies, small medium enterprises active in agri. So that's definitely something that we're launching later this year.
Yeah, and I think it is good to add though that basically tying to Koen's previous answer, it will continue to be important to offer our investors various investment opportunities. So we should also not, and we do not only want to provide opportunities in the renewable energy space, such that people who have more affiliation with other type of sectors also find right projects to invest in. And on top of that, I think originally Lendahand was created because we truly believe in the power of entrepreneurship, in the power of job creation to generate growth and to grow out of poverty. And so small and mid-sized enterprises in any economy are the real driver of jobs, and having a job not only is important for economic well-being, but for general well-being. And so we still believe that in the traditional industries, in the countries that we are, where our investees are, there's still also a lot of development to be done in those traditional industries, like garment making, for example. We have a retailer of what's it called, handicraft and locally made jewelry, and those businesses are supporting local communities and are generating jobs. So yes, we do like to do more in renewable energy, in smart agricultural solutions, but we will also continue to support other businesses which are good for jobs creation.
So maybe one of the questions that we also had asked before we started this webinar from one of the potential investors, Daniel, is what the effect will be of this new capital raise on existing shareholders.
Yes. Okay. So let's park that one, because I see a comment here that due to that audio was lost, and if we can repeat the answer on new business. And with new business, do you refer to the new platform that we are about to launch that will facilitate investments in agricultural businesses? So Wim, if you could specify your question on the chat, please do, and then in the meantime we will continue with some of the other questions.
The effect on the existing shareholders.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously we have existing shareholders in the company, and yes, they will if they decide to not invest in this particular round, they will dilute, which means that after this round, they will hold a smaller percentage of the shares of Lendahand. However, the increase in valuation compared to the previous funding rounds is higher than the dilution of the 5.4% in this round. So from that perspective, people will hold a slightly smaller percentage in a company that is worth more at this moment. On top of that, I think it is in everybody's interest that we continue to do the things that we are doing, and with the new money coming in, we can invest in our processes, so in our IT, in our investment process. So we'd like to go to be smarter when doing investments, and we need to invest in software and tools to manage our portfolio in a smarter way. But also we need the funds to actually go to the Nordics and to Germany and to strengthen our relation with our daughter company in the UK. So by using the funds that we are raising in this round, we can grow the company, which will ultimately benefit our existing shareholders as well. Okay, so I now see a comment that we have a recording of the webinar and that the audio was actually there, so you will be able to hear back our answers to previous questions, and I suggest we continue with some new questions. And there's a comment. There's a question whether Lendahand is large enough or strong enough as a lender to negotiate and to bargain, if you like, with other investors. For example, the Shell Foundation or Novastar. How do you view that?
It's a very good question. And so when we first started, that was definitely not the case. When we were like this fresh startup, naive in our thinking, we had as I said before, in Lendahand we have people with banking experience, but most of it was actually in European financial markets. And then you go out there, you go to Africa, and you say, okay, let's start and do some lending. So we learned it the hard way, I guess. And we have lots of anecdotes that we can share later, hopefully, when we can all get and see each other. But that was a few years ago, and I think that we've learned so much, and so we have this credit policy, we have an external credit committee. We have really made lots of improvements there in our process and in our guidelines and in the way we are set up. But also we brought on board people, and also we're making use of experienced consultants who have worked at such companies, but also at FMO, etc. So we are asking questions to experienced investors in this space. We really want to make sure that what we do is best in class. So we always keep on thinking, how can we improve, how can we do better, so that we can actually become a better investor, if you will. So in the end, ultimately, we are not an investor, but we are selecting investees to join and raise funds on our platform. And we just want to make sure that those are companies that not are only creating lots of impact, but also are well organized, and it's actually just a good investment to make. So we have now done more than 30 investments, and I think it's fair to say that we are regarded as a professional investor in this space by the likes of those companies. They really see us as on equal footing. We know what we do, we know what to look for, we have very good conversations, and personally what I like is that, so I used to work in the city on the trading floor, and the person sitting next to me on the trading floor will also be my direct competitor. Here in this impact investing space, what you see is that we're all in the same boat. We all see that we all want to do our piece in solving this puzzle and making sure that people get access to energy, get included in financial services, get a job, etc. We all are very supportive of each other. So we are informing each other of which countries are now good to enter into, which are kind of risky at the moment. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing taking place, and that only feeds into indeed the reputation that you are building as a platform and investor. So I would say yes, we are definitely regarded as the same quality investor as these kind of companies.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any current questions on the chat. We do have a couple of remaining questions.
Well, actually, we've I think we've answered all of them.
Okay,
And it's also, it's already going on for 1 hour. But what we will do is we will do another session like this next week. If you're up for it, Daniel.
I'm liking it. Yeah.
So let's do that. For us, it's very important that this is you in the end have to make an investment decision whether you want to invest in Lendahand. You need to be comfortable and have the right information at your disposal to make that decision. So as a company, we one of our core values is transparency. We want to be as open as possible. And by doing more of these sessions, hopefully we are actually doing that. It's always, we don't have a hidden agenda. This is Lendahand. This is, if you want to know what our shortcomings are, you can actually go to our website and we show exactly what our shortcomings are. This is it. We are building on hopefully a better future, not only for ourselves but also for our kids. We are building a better future, hopefully, for lots of people out there in the emerging markets. And at the same time, we want to provide value to impact investors and make sure that they get a good financial return, but also know that what is happening with the money, what we're doing with what we are doing with the money, that it is creating positive impact. And yes, there are lots of risks involved, but there's also a lot of upside potential. And we hope that we can earn your trust. We will work hard for it, and hopefully we are all able to build for a better future. So thank you for your time and your questions. And yeah, we will be sending out a new link for the next session. So if you want, you can join that one again, or maybe tell others if they would like to learn more about Lendahand. Thank you all.
Thank you for your attention. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.